All right, Lillian, we are live.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and welcome to the members, Commissioner McQueen, and the public to this special call meeting of the State Board of Education. TCA 8-44-108 requires that any meeting of the board taking place by electronic means must be accompanied by a statement of necessity. It further requires that when any member of the board is participating by electronic means, then all votes of that meeting shall be by call of the roll. At this time, I call on our General Counsel, Ms. Elizabeth Taylor, to read the statement of necessity for a conference call meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated Section 49-3-306, the Commissioner of Education is required to annually present and submit to the State Board of Education for approval a state minimum salary schedule for licensed personnel. In order to create the state minimum salary schedule, the Commissioner of Education must wait for the General Assembly to approve the budget. This leaves a limited amount of time for the State Board to approve the salary schedule and for local education agencies to set their own salary schedules based on the state minimum. Because of the limited time for the State Board to approve the salary schedule and local education agencies to create their own before the start of the next school year, this special call teleconference meeting was convened to allow the board to review and approve the proposed salary schedules. In addition, the State Board needs to vote on its time-sensitive LEA promotion assessment grading policy. As members of the State Board reside across the state, it was determined that a physical quorum of the members could not be assembled in Nashville for purposes of the special call board meeting. As such, the State Board is meeting via teleconference to review the salary schedule and the time-sensitive policy revision.
Thank you, Elizabeth. At this time, I call on Amy Owen on our staff to call the roll of the members to establish a quorum.
Mr. Baucom. Mr. Cobbins.
Here.
Mr. Darnell.
Here.
Mr. Eby.
Here.
Mr. Edwards. Mr. Ferguson. Ms. Kim. Ms. Tucker.
Here.
Ms. Hartgrove.
Here. I declare that we have a quorum and we are duly convened. I further declare that Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Edwards are both excused from this meeting. I do want to welcome our newest member, Mr. Nick Darnell of the 1st Congressional District. Mr. Darnell is a history and government teacher with Hamlin County Schools, and we look forward to getting to know him as we serve together. Nick, welcome to the board, and you are recognized.
Thank you all very much. It really is truly a great honor to be able to serve with you all. I've read your biographies, and you all are just an impressive group of people. I've had the honor to speak with some of you and look forward to working with you in the future to keep the great momentum that we have as a state. So thank you all for welcoming me, and I'm sure I'll have lots of questions in the future and hope you'll help me with that.
Great, thank you so much. At this time, I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as distributed and as it appears on the website. Do I have a motion?
Bob Eby, I so move.
Bob Eby, thank you for the motion. Do I have a second?
This is Wendy with a second.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Owen, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby.
Aye.
Ms. Tucker.
Aye.
Ms. Hartgrove.
Aye. We do adopt the agenda. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Ms. Mary Ann Dursky on item 3A, state minimum salary schedule for fiscal year 2018-19. Ms. Dursky, please state your title for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Mary Ann Dursky. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Local Finance for the Department of Education. We have brought today the recommended state minimum salary schedule for fiscal year 18-19. The fiscal year 19 budget includes approximately $55 million in improvements for teacher salaries. This improvement is reflected in an increase in the basic education program's instructional salary component and has resulted in a significant amount of new instructional funding for our districts. Districts are no longer required to provide across-the-board pay increases for their teachers, which formerly were based solely on seniority and educational attainment. Under the current salary structure, districts have the ability and flexibility to determine their own areas of need and to structure their compensation plans accordingly. Annually, the Commissioner of Education is required to present and submit to the State Board of Education a state salary schedule for licensed personnel. The current state minimum salary includes a base salary of $33,745. The proposal for school year 18-19 increases this base salary to a minimum of $35,000. This would be the first time that every teacher in Tennessee would be guaranteed to have a minimum salary of $35,000. The overwhelming majority of our districts currently exceed the state minimums. Many teachers make well beyond $35,000, but this is a milestone in that all teachers would be at a minimum of $35,000. This is the result of a concerted effort on the part of the Commissioner of Education to support teachers' salaries, and funding has been provided through efforts by the Governor's Office and our state legislature. There are several requirements around salary dollars for districts. 100% of the $55 million salary improvement must be spent on teacher compensation, either salaries or benefits, regardless of any action that may be taken on the state minimum salary schedule. Additionally, any district that is below the statewide weighted average salary must utilize the new funds strictly for salaries and not for benefits. The department is required to prepare an analysis of any proposed change to a policy, rule, or regulation, and we have done so with this proposed salary schedule. We estimate that a total of 57 school districts would be required to make increases to at least one level of their local salary schedules as a result of this change in the minimum schedule. And this would result in a specific salary expense for them. For these districts, the increase in new state funds through the BEP is more than sufficient to provide funding to meet this requirement. We estimate that approximately 2,295 teachers will be impacted by the increase to the minimum salary schedule. Finally, for all of the 147 school districts, the new funds earned in the salary component must be utilized for teacher compensation, regardless of any change to the minimum salary schedule. So the new salary funding will flow through to our teachers. The Department of Education recommends acceptance of this item on final reading, and the State Board of Education staff concurs. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions?
This is Bob. I did have one question. On the affected districts, you have the number of educators that are affected and the increases. Does that mean that at this point in time, those districts do not meet the minimum schedules for one of the categories?
It means they would not, currently they do not meet the proposed salary schedule.
Increase, right. Okay,
Correct.
that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. Thank
Correct.
you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'm sorry, this is Wendy. There's one other question. Sorry, I was late. I'm in the car and I was trying to drive past such a guy before I could do this. If there's somewhere where a citizen could go and look and see what the different district salary schedules are.
Yes, they are posted on the State Department of Education's website on the differentiated pay page. differentiated compensation.
So I could go and pull up like Gwinnett County and see what their compensation schedule is.
Yes, they are all posted.
As well as any
Okay,
alternative
great,
schedules.
Mhm.
Good question. Any other questions? Okay, I need a motion to approve.
This is Bob. I'll move for approval.
Bob Eby, thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Nick. I'll second.
Nick provides a second. Thank you. Any other discussion before the roll call? Okay, Ms. Owen, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Eby,
Aye.
Ms. Tucker,
Aye.
Ms. Hartgrove.
Aye. Members, by your vote, you've passed item 3A on final reading. Thank you, Ms. Stursky, and thank you, Commissioner McQueen. I think we're all pleased to see that we are moving the base salary in the right direction. Thank you. At this time, I recognize Ms. Sylvia Flowers and Dr. Paul Fleming on item 3B, Local Education Agency Alternative Salary Schedule. Ms. Flowers and Dr. Fleming, please state your titles for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon. This is Sylvia Flowers, Executive Director of Educator Talent in the Teachers and Leaders Division. You have before you today a list of 15 districts who are seeking reapproval of their alternative salary schedule. The Strategic Compensation Policy 5.600 permits districts to meet the requirements of differentiated pay through the adoption of an alternative salary schedule, which must be approved by the State Board of Education. The new policy has established a validity period of up to 3 years for alternative salary schedules. And the schedules that you have before you were previously approved 3 or more years ago. So this is bringing those district alternative salary schedules into this new validity period. You have on the second attachment a summary of each district's plan. The first 11 districts are requesting reapproval to continue their performance-based alternative salary schedule, which utilize our approved state evaluation system and individual levels of overall effectiveness to determine base pay increases. The 4 districts at the end of the attachment are requesting reapproval for their alternative salary schedule that provides specific criteria for compensation for advanced degrees. At this time, I would like to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Flowers?
Yeah, this is Bob again. I found it very interesting, the variation between each of the districts, and I'm a firm believer in local control. But when these districts set up these salary schedules, is there any kind of sharing or any kind of training or anything, or does each one just basically come up with their own alternative schedule?
Yes, that's a great question. About 4 or 5 years ago, when we changed the state minimum salary schedule to the version that you have now, we actually provided quite a bit of technical assistance to help districts think about new ways that they could create innovative salary schedules that also utilize our state-approved evaluation model. We used a lot of best practice sharing across districts and used national resources to think of, to provide examples and opportunities for districts to learn. Since that time, we continue, as mentioned, to share information about what other districts are doing. We keep all of the information posted on our website, and then my team specifically provides hands-on technical assistance to any district who is wanting to look at new compensation models.
Very good, thank you.
Are there other questions? Okay, at this time, we'll take a first motion to approve. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Bob, second.
I didn't hear the first.
There.
Daryl.
Daryl, thank you, Daryl. And Bob, you're providing the second?
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I will call on Amy to take the roll.
Mr. Cobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Eby,
Aye.
Ms. Tucker,
Aye.
Ms. Hartgrove.
Aye. Members, by your vote, you've passed item 3B on final reading. Thank you, Ms. Flowers. We appreciate your presentation and time this afternoon. At this time, I'm going to call on Ms. Angie Sanders for item 3C, SBE Charter School Local Education Agency Promotion and Retention, Grading, and Assessment Policy 4603. Please provide your title and proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. My name is Angie Sanders. I'm the Deputy Director of Policy and Accountability for the State Board. This item is a revision to our LEA policy regarding grading and TN-Ready and EOC assessments. Again, this policy is only applicable to charter schools that are authorized by the State Board of Education. This was necessitated by changes to state laws regarding the percentage that TN-Ready and EOC state tests will count toward a student's final grade. This item is on first and final reading so that changes can be effective prior to the end of this school year. To account for challenges encountered by our authorized charter school and administration of the Algebra 1 EOC, this item proposes reducing the amount that the Algebra 1 test will count toward a student's final grade for the 17-18 school year from 15% down to 7.5%. After discussion with our authorized charter school, we both value the importance of counting these exams in students' grades, but given the challenges that they encountered with the administration of Algebra 1, we agreed that reducing it down to 7.5% was the appropriate action. No challenges were encountered during the administration of the English 1 EOC, so we are not making any changes to the percentage that that exam will count towards students' final grades. I will point out that guidance from the department has been issued that states that these exams will only count in a student's final grade if it helps the student. So there may be situations where a student does not have the Algebra 1 exam EOC counted in their final grade if it would serve to harm the student's grade in any way. Additionally, we're making some changes to comply with another public chapter that was passed by the General Assembly this year that adjusts the percentage that TN-Ready and EOC exams will count toward a student's final grade in grades 3 through 8 for the 2018-19 school year and thereafter. This proposes setting the percentage for grades 3 through 8 at between 10 and 25% of a student's final grade. Authorized charter schools would then have to notify the state board staff of the percentage within that range that they have chosen. And with that, I am happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Sanders?
Yeah,
Amy, this is Nick.
Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Amy, can you describe, I know you said there were problems mainly with the algebra test and not the English. What were those administration problems? Could you talk a little bit about that?
The problems that were reported to us by our school were mostly with issues with getting the test to download at the beginning, and then issues with submitting the test at the end. We also had a few students who were affected by the challenges with text-to-speech toward the end of the administration window. They had to suspend the use of that. And then there was one day where our school had to delay the Algebra 1 exam because they were having issues, for example, like I said, with downloading. So we felt that these issues did not really affect a lot of issues in terms of students being able to take the test, but more issues on the front end and on the back end. So because of that, we felt that some adjustment did need to be made.
Okay. And just to be clear, if a student's score would negatively impact them, it will not be counted, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, you had a question?
Yeah, and this may be just a protocol question. Doesn't have to do with the actual testing, but we're treating the policy on promotion, retention, grading, and assessment. If we had some questions on the other parts of the policy, when would it be appropriate to bring that up, or is that something that we ought to talk about later and then bring back up for a modification? Just some confusion, the way the thing's written, sort of confusing to me.
Yeah, I'm happy to, if you have questions about that, to speak with you offline, or if it's something
Okay.
simple I can answer right now, whatever you would prefer.
Well, I'll lay the question out and then you can tell me.
Okay.
So like in this one where it's talking about student retention, it says if the student is not enrolled in a summer program, decision for retention should be made and communicated to the student during at least 30 days prior to the start of the next school year. I would hope that we would let them know in advance to encourage them to be in a summer program. So what's the benefit of telling them 30 days if they're in the middle of summer? I mean, wouldn't they know by the end of the school year whether they're going to be retained or not?
Yeah, Bob, that is actually language from our state board policy on promotion and retention that we just pulled directly into our LEA policy.
And this is
Okay.
Sarah. Bob, we may want to talk a little bit more offline, not that we couldn't talk now, but there's probably a more detailed
Okay.
answer, and I'd want to confer with our colleagues at the department. But I think a lot of the thinking there is that it's a pretty tight window, obviously, between sort of determining at the end of the year whether or not a student is ready to be promoted and or would need summer school remediation with the hope that they could still be promoted. So let me check with some colleagues and get back to you to make sure we've
Okay.
got accurate information. But I think some of the timing in our policy is dependent on sort of that tight window and trying to determine, giving the student every possibility of getting remediated in time to be promoted. But I don't know, Candace, if you have anything you want to add, or is that
Yeah,
fair?
that's
We'll
the
just
exact
look back.
language from state board policy that's been in effect now several years. The intent of that language is exactly what Sarah said. It was put in there to say you've got an opportunity this summer for remediation, and it gives you enough time to actually get to the end of the school year and then actually enroll in something and have some value from it and outcomes before there was a decision related to retention.
Right.
So that's why that window.
Not that it couldn't be shared with the parents earlier if that
That's correct.
information
Yeah.
was determined earlier, but gives you sort of the maximum window. But if there's anything more
Yeah, I
that
mean,
I'm missing,
I firmly believe that, we want to give them as much time. And I'll talk to you later, Sarah, about specifically the wording that just seems a little confusing to me. It sounds like we do it after the fact. So
perfect,
maybe
that'd
I'm
be
not
great.
totally understanding.
One of the advantages of having relatively new members like you on is the fresh set of eyes on all of these policies that many of us have been looking at for years. So I would welcome that feedback.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we need a motion to approve. This is Wendy.
Bob. Oh, go ahead, Wendy.
Wendy provides the motion. Do we have a second?
Bob will second.
Thank you, Bob. Bob provides a second. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll ask Ms. Amy Owens to provide the roll call. Amy?
Mr. Cobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Eby,
Aye.
Ms. Tucker,
Aye.
Ms. Hartgrove.
Aye. Members, by your vote, you pass item 3C on final reading. That does conclude our formalized agenda. I do want to remind everyone that our next in-person meeting is July the 27th in Nashville. Sarah, I don't know if we have our venue yet. Do we know where we're meeting for our July meeting?
I We will be at Cordell Hull for at least part of the day, if not the whole day. Just a reminder to members that obviously it'll be summer, so we won't be doing a school visit that morning like we normally would before our workshop. But we will be doing our joint session with THEC in its place. And so it'll be a full day on Thursday. I'm looking at Amy, but I think the whole day will be at Cordell Hull. We'll certainly get a lot more information to you on details ahead of that meeting.
Great. And I want to go back and thank Angie for her presentation, because I know it takes a lot to present this amount of information in a very short period of time. So thank you so much for that. Are there any other remarks or comments from the board members or Commissioner McQueen or you, Sarah, before we adjourn?
The only other reminder I would make is just in terms of scheduling, we do have a subcommittee meeting on the morning of June 13th. That's our subcommittee on licensure and preparation. So just would encourage any of our members who are not specifically on that subcommittee to dial in or join if they're able. That's obviously an area that's of real importance to the board and to the state. Amy Owen will be your contact if you want information about that meeting on June 13th. Anything else from Candace or others?
No, I hope that the board members had an opportunity to review 2 reports that have come out from 2 different national groups last week and this week, one from Achieve and the other from Education Next, that shows the well over a decade worth of work that truly started under Governor Bredesen, and then moved to Governor Haslam under really almost 16 years of strong work in education, has moved Tennessee from an F by all accounts. U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Achieve, and Education Next all have given Tennessee an F for several years, and we have moved even more rapidly over the last 3 or 4 years to move that to an A, and have really closed that truth-telling gap of what we're sharing with families. And so I want to say thank you to the state board members who've been part of all that work and your leadership that will continue to move that forward.
Thank you for noting that. This is Sarah, but just members know that when we send those Friday updates with various articles, last week there was one and you'll see some more in this Friday's update. So if you want to read up on those studies, which I would definitely encourage you to do, it's encouraging news for our state to see that.
Incredibly encouraging news, and I thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention, Commissioner McQueen. And I did see that information, and it is absolutely cause for celebration. So thank you again for sharing that with us this afternoon. Anything else before we adjourn? Thank you all so much. So without any objection, we are adjourned. I think we did this in 30 minutes. Yes, we
Great.
did.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Sounds pretty good.